Earthquakes, landslides, typhoons, tsunamis. We call them natural disasters, but the toll they take on the most vulnerable, especially children, is unnatural. The numbers of those killed, injured or made destitute by natural hazards is due mainly to a lack of preparedness, sometimes environmental mismanagement and occasionally corruption. Children on the front line comes from the front line of disasters. We focus on young people who are taking it upon themselves to reduce the risks to themselves and to their communities. This week, Children on the Front Line travels to El Salvador. El Salvador is the smallest and most densely populated country in Central America. It is also one of the most disaster-prone in the world. The hazards its people face are magnified by chronic environmental mismanagement. Flooding during hurricane season is exacerbated by rampant deforestation. Natural hazards exact a heavy toll on the 71% of the population who, according to the Red Cross, live in extreme poverty. In this programme, we look at how, by combating the country's widespread environmental degradation, young people are protecting themselves and their communities from potential future disasters. Among these young people is a never-again attitude. They're forming groups to tackle the direct threats to life from floods and landslides, as well as the ever-present risk of disease from contaminated and mosquito-infested water. They're working with local government, community members and schools. Monica is a leading light of the group in her village of Las Granadillas. She works with younger children, organising and teaching them how to reduce the risk of disaster in their own village. Risk maps help the children identify the most vulnerable places in their area. Murals on the school walls teach children about the importance of protecting the environment.
The community of Las Granadillas is very vulnerable because it is located in a mountain range. It's in a dip enclosed by mountains and steep slopes.
In October 2005, Hurricane Stan battered the country and caused widespread flooding. A state of emergency was declared, and over 70,000 people were forced to flee their homes, according to the National Emergency Committee. 67 died in the floods that followed. One of the areas worst affected was the village of El Rosario. Monica came to find out what it was like to be in the eye of the storm, and now young people here are trying to ensure disaster doesn't strike again.
Let's just say it was a very difficult time and very sad. Because the storm was so powerful, it destroyed the land and the hillsides, because it's very mountainous where we live. This storm really made us very afraid because the rain didn't stop. One thing about this particular spot is that when more rain came, the water collected in the town. Many things were destroyed and our little house was swept away.
A reconstruction and rehabilitation program has provided new housing for the survivors, and now Arista has a new house, which she helped to build herself, this time from concrete.
We've been living here maybe 2 months. I feel happy in this place. It's less risky. The house is very well built. It cost me personally as I worked on it myself. I learned how to mix cement and I helped with the work building the foundations. I feel very safe, protected under this roof.
In El Salvador, hurricanes are a seasonal event. Torrential rains dislodge the soils on exposed hillsides and lead to killer mudslides. This spiky grass, vetiver, is a lifesaver. Its deep tangle of roots can fix a denuded hillside. Myra is involved in the planting.
We do it to protect the families here. It comes from very deep in our hearts. Sometimes the rain causes such severe erosion in our country that people lose their lives.
Vetiver grass is native to India. It grows easily, providing a quick fix for stabilizing slopes.
First we trim the top part and we leave the roots with just a little bit of grass at the top.
Then they use an A-frame to ensure that the grass is planted in a straight line. Vetiver grass grows a thick and impenetrable tangle of roots that plunge 3 meters into the ground. The roots lock the soil on erosion-prone slopes, preventing it from slipping away.
How has the community responded? The families are very thankful about us coming here to help them.
The effect of heavy rain on bare slopes in El Salvador is compounded by the recurring earthquakes of the Pacific Rim, which can turn a flood into a moving wall of earth. One of the worst earthquakes occurred on January the 13th, 2001. It measured 7.9 on the Richter scale. Exactly a month later, the country was hit by another earthquake, measuring 6.6. More than 1,000 people died, and almost 300,000 homes were destroyed or badly damaged. The Red Cross estimates that over 1 million people were displaced or in need. In some cases, entire communities disappeared from the map. Both floods and the killer landslides responsible for much of this destruction are much less likely on wooded slopes. Only 5% of El Salvador's original forest remains. 2/3 of the clearance took place over the last 40 years. The forest cover has been cleared to make way for farmland and settlements for an increasing population. Extra pressure comes from the need for household energy. Villagers here still rely on firewood for cooking. In the district of Canton El Cedro, there's a groundswell movement amongst the older children to take it upon themselves to reforest the hillsides. Roberto Carrillo is part of a youth committee that doesn't just do the hands-on work of planting trees, but also raises awareness among the population of the importance of safeguarding the environment.
Roberto, tell me about the work that you are doing.
What we do is go to work on Saturdays, filling the bags with earth and planting seeds. And when they've grown into saplings, we go to plant them. We take them to the greenhouse. If it's a long way, then we take them in wheelbarrows.
They've even learned how to make their own compost.
Well, we leave it for a month, and we know when it's ready by sticking a machete blade in. And if it comes out wet, we have to turn it. But if it comes out hot, we have to open it up. So the blade has to come out not too wet and not too hot.
The compost feeds a ready supply of saplings for reforestation.
What do people from the community think about your nursery project and the planting of trees around watercourses?
People are pleased that we plant trees. Otherwise, the springs can dry up.
The youth group at El Cedro is taking the responsibility for protecting the community from disasters. Roberto too feels he's benefited personally from being a member of the group.
Bueno, la verdad, las primeras cuando comenzaban a venir, sentía pena.
When I first joined the group, I was very shy, scared of speaking in front of others.
Sentía como miedo a pasar cuando decían que pasáramos a hablar enfrente.
But then little by little, I came to lose that shyness. It's been very good for me to feel more confident and to open up to the group.
In the forest community of La Montonona, the young people are dealing with another threat to the hillsides: fire. Every spring, farmers use fires to clear thousands of hectares of forest and scrubland for agricultural use. These fires can sometimes rage out of control.
What we are going to do is a drill, a fire drill. We are going to do this so that people can practice what to do in a fire and learn how to stop fires from reaching the mountain.
In a real fire, the children and young people would stay on the periphery. But they still have a role to play in cutting back the grass and clearing away dry leaves, anything that might cause the fire to spread. Children also help the men to load the water to fight the fire. 500 hectares was given to the community by the government on condition they don't allow burning on the land. The children have learnt that protecting the environment means protecting their own lives.
La opción de enseñarle a los niños cómo plantar árboles, cómo cuidar los árboles
The idea of teaching children how to save trees, how to look after them, how to make nurseries and how to teach others to save more trees is a very good idea. Because we children and teenagers, we are able to learn very quickly.
In part 2, we see how the youth of one town is trying to prevent dengue fever, and how in another, school children are teaching their parents about hygiene. No one knows when a tectonic movement in the Pacific Rim will cause another earthquake in El Salvador, or even how severe the next hurricane will be. But throughout the country, groups of young people are working to reduce the risks from these and other natural hazards. Monica is now 18. She began working with other young people in disaster prevention after the earthquake in 2001 shattered her village of Las Granadillas.
The Committee for Disasters was started after the earthquake. They started to train the young people, so we had about 20 youngsters, children and teenagers, between 12, 13, up to 17 years old.
Monica has come to the town of Potonico to meet another group of young people who are working on the threat of insect-borne disease. Sometimes fatal, dengue fever causes high temperature, joint pains and vomiting. It's spread by mosquitoes, which lay their eggs in pools of stagnant water. Discarded rubbish and other forms of pollution create the ideal conditions for them to breed. Prevention, by draining areas of standing water, is the best approach. And the children in affected areas are taking the message home.
In El Salvador,
there are lots of people who aren't aware they need to keep their houses clean. A lot of useless things are left lying around. These can easily become a breeding place for mosquitoes.
6 years ago, the authorities started a campaign to defeat the mosquito. Pupils from the local school, accompanied by a health worker, visit households every month to explain the dangers caused by dumping rubbish and allowing stagnant water to collect as a breeding ground for mosquitoes. The children then help clean up. 18-year-old Mauricio is one of the pupils who regularly takes part.
What are the things that you find in these campaigns?
We find things like coconuts, broken glass bottles, plastic bottles, wooden boxes that are disused, or other containers that people leave around that eventually get filled with water. And that's where the mosquitoes come and lay their eggs.
The children inspect the rubbish before it's thrown away. Mosquito larvae turn up in the most unlikely of places. In this old shoe, they found a mosquito larva, which in a couple of days would become a fully formed mosquito, a possible carrier of dengue fever. Plant pots too are possible breeding grounds. Once again, they found a larva in water that's been allowed to accumulate in the plant stand. Even the water in the hen coops has to be inspected. It's another potential source of mosquitoes. If the water cannot be drained out, an alternative has to be found.
What we usually do is to empty the water out and treat it with soap.
Whenever larvae are found, the health inspector makes a note and explains why the homeowner needs to keep the yard clean and rubbish-free. Dengue fever can be fatal, especially to young children. During the hurricane season, the heavy rains and floods create the ideal conditions for epidemics.
We like to see our community clean, and we don't want anyone in our community to die from dengue fever. It would be very sad.
The mayor of Potonico acknowledges the importance of the children's contribution.
It's very interesting because the difference is that the children learn by doing, and they take the responsibility back to their homes. So they keep their houses clean and make sure there are no mosquito larvae there. And at the same time, the little ones have an interest in keeping the town clean. The girls and boys and teenagers take great pride in that.
And their work is paying off. The authorities in Potonico told us there's been a drop in dengue fever cases in the town, whereas in the rest of El Salvador, there's reportedly been a rise in the cases of the disease. Mosquitoes are one threat to health, but water quality is also crucial. According to the United Nations Children's Fund, only 39% of the rural population has access to decent sanitation. Under these conditions, diseases such as diarrhea are a serious threat to health, especially to the very old and very young. Monica says her home village of Las Granadillas is no exception.
We are here at the water tank, but the problem is that it's contaminated water. People come here to wash, and when it rains it gets even more contaminated. People come to wash clothes and to take water home for daily chores. The problem is that there's rubbish in the area, detergent wrappers, soap and chlorine. The rubbish gets into the water tank, and when it rains it washes down into the main river and contaminates it. It's not a good thing that people wash their clothes here, but there's no other option.
Bathing in and drinking contaminated water leads to gastrointestinal diseases which can be fatal. Diarrhea is one of the world's biggest childhood killers. The World Health Organization estimates that diarrhea causes 4% of all deaths worldwide, even though it's easily prevented through improved hygiene and clean water. This is why lessons in hygiene are such an important part of the school curriculum. In Caseria Los Anandes, 12-year-old Raquel and her classmates teach the younger children about personal hygiene.
Tengan todos ustedes muy buenos días. En este día tengo el placer y el gusto de presentarles a nuestro equipo de trabajo.
Older children teaching younger ones about basic hygiene ensures that the message gets through and has maximum impact. As Raquel tells Monica, children have a special ability to get the message across.
Adults can be a bit boring, and they don't use physical activities in their talks. It's just them speaking. You must do this and that, keep your house tidy, and so on and so on. They don't talk with any humour. They're very serious and focused, so it can be a bit boring.
Raquel's mother Julia is proud of her achievements.
These type of talks, especially about health, have always been given by health workers. Now when we hear it from our children, there's a difference because when children do the talks, the parents pay more attention because they are our children. Maybe parents feel the children will make a mistake, but as we all say, the children leave us with our mouths open in amazement when we see how well they can do it, how well they can talk.
The work of El Salvador's youth groups in disaster mitigation is making a generation aware of the link between their environment and the safety of their communities.
This work has really benefited me, and it's taught me so much about preventing disasters and looking after the environment. The impact it's had is to make me more aware that the environment is very important.
De que nuestro medio ambiente es muy importante.